In this video, I'm gonna break down the Waves LV1 digital mixer here at New Creation Church. I'm gonna walk you through our pre-planning process. I'll break down all the gear that we used for this specific install and how you can use the same fundamental principles of the Waves LV1 system to upgrade your audio quality at your church. Hey, welcome back to the Churchfront channel. My name is Luke. I serve as one of the coaches on the Churchfront team. We are here at New Creation Church in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, and we are upgrading an old analog system to a Waves LV1 digital mixing solution. So we are helping out Jonathan and his team. Jonathan is one of our accelerator students in our Churchfront program, and so we've been working with him through the process to upgrade his current audio infrastructure, and we come on site with the gear and install it all and make it happen. So if you are interested in having our team come alongside you in your gear transition or helping you find a solution to get your worship and tech goals in your church, you can head to churchfront.com/apply to schedule a free call with one of our team members to help get you started today. So I wanted to walk us through kind of why we are helping New Creation Church upgrade their audio system. And this is their old Yamaha M7CL. Now the Yamaha M7CL has tons of horsepower. It was a great digital mixer back in the day with lots of legendary Yamaha sound, high channel count. You know, it was a great mixer for the time. So when it came down to it, this console started to fail a little bit. Some of the inputs and some of the stage I/O was starting to fail, and Jonathan and his team knew that it was time to make the transition. They had been preparing for it. They had really squeezed the life out of this console for as long as they could until it started to cause a lot of distractions during worship services, and they even had a couple crashes that would happen from time to time where a full system reboot would need to happen, and that can create a lot of kind of nervousness, anxiety in the moment because you're worried that not everything is going to talk to each other well. So now moving to one system with one set of I/O, you have kind of one network of audio talking to each other. You don't have to worry about expansion card slots. This is going to really simplify the training experience for onboarding new volunteers and the Sunday morning user experience at front of house and broadcast. So the first step in this process with New Creation Church here in Glenwood Springs was to start designing their show file and their Waves LV1 setup. Waves makes that super easy because we can download an offline editor for the LV1 mixer before we even have any of the hardware or any of the routing or schematic or cable run. We can start mapping out their channel inputs and their outputs for their matrices, their main left right, their monitor mixes. We can do all that within the software, save it to a USB drive, show up, and be 90% of the way done, minus a couple tweaks in the process. So I started here in the LV1 offline editor, and then we've been using a tool called Whimsical for probably the past couple months where we're able to do a lot of easy design to map out the project for the client. So I wanted to break down for you the Waves system here at New Creation Church so that you kind of have an overview of how all these parts work together and how we're taking their existing infrastructure and syncing it up with the LV1 system. So let's start kind of here at the front of house position. So starting here at the beginning is really the brains and the heart of an LV1 system is going to be the Waves host computer. So you can see here, we're using the Axis Scope machine from Waves, and this is a custom configured PC made by Waves that comes really pre-configured for a Waves LV1 setup. You can get a configuration for a different amount of channels that you might need for your church's circumstance, and that's gonna run the software that powers the mixer. So if you think about your faders and your EQs and things like that, all of that control is gonna be in that software of LV1 on the host computer. Right next to that, you see the Waves server. These channels are going to be processed with plugins, and that includes all of Waves plugins. You can subscribe to a couple different plugin subscriptions, or you can buy independent plugins and load them in. But those plugins have to be processed somewhere, which is where the Waves server comes in. So all of that plugin processing is offloaded onto this one machine, the Extreme C server here in this situation, and that really allows the LV1 system to run smoothly and allows you tons of processing power right there on the server without the host computer getting bogged down. For most churches, we definitely recommend considering the 32 or the 64 channel configuration for LV1, and the Extreme C Server is a great option that provides you a ton of horsepower and plenty of headroom to process all those plugins that you're gonna use for not only your in the room in front of house mixes, but also your broadcast mixes, making sure that you get a high quality mix to your live stream. So in this configuration, we've got two different types of I/O. Waves has a couple different stage box sizes. So for this configuration, we went with a DS Pro 4000, which is a 32 channel input and 16 output I/O stage box. So you can see that here in the drawing that we've got one at stage left and one at stage right, so that we have a little bit of access to stage I/O on both sides of the stage. Then we also have a smaller I/O rack called the DS Pro 1000, which gives you 8 analog inputs on the front and 4 outputs on the back. So that gives you access for a talkback mic. Maybe you've got a computer graphics machine or a media playback coming from ProPresenter that you want to route into your stage I/O. So there's a lot of different options that you can use to kind of custom build based on your channel needs, your stage I/O in your worship context. In this circumstance in New Creation, we have plenty of analog outputs to link up their wireless receivers for their in-ear monitors, but you could hypothetically load a Waves card into another mixer somewhere else and use that as your monitoring solution, because it would be connected to the Waves SoundGrid network. So all of this gear and all of this infrastructure is all connected via a network cable and a network connection. And that allows you to connect any other gear with a Waves sound card in it to the network. So you could connect a computer running a virtual sound card to send virtual inputs and outputs to and from the computer all over an Ethernet cable, or you could connect another mixer with a Waves SoundGrid card in it as well. Lots of flexibility and scalability for your ministry needs. So at New Creation, we wanted to install something that felt familiar to what they previously had to give them enough tactile control, but something that was new and gave them more flexibility than just a touchscreen. So we ended up going with 2 Waves Fit controllers, which is just a MIDI controller that's synced up over USB into the LV1 host computer. And that Fit controller gives you access to banks of faders. It gives you access to user customizable keys. It gives you access to tap tempo. These are great little MIDI controllers that sit right at the front of house position. You could put this in a broadcast room and share some of the Waves I/O and have some fader control there. But this gave us a lot of faders to work with and gives us a lot of flexibility. Even though we have the touchscreen access, we can also have some tactile control right there at front of house. And with the Waves LV1 system, you have the ability to control it via touchscreens. You've probably seen a lot of cool configurations online of this setup, and so we opted for the Dell P2424 HT touchscreen monitor. We bought 2 of them to have at front of house. So we have 2 touchscreen monitors, we have 2 Fit controllers, giving a ton of flexible control so that you can have whatever window of LV1 you want up on one screen. You can have an additional separate window up on the other screen, and then you still have tactile fader control kind of at the hub of your LV1 mixing solution. And I wanted to give you a walkthrough of the eMotion LV1 show file for how we've configured the Waves LV1 system here for their church. So I want to walk you through all the channels and kind of how we've got it laid out, some of the user preferences, and how we're doing the mixing blueprint here with the LV1. So on the LV1, you've got your basic default layers of all the channels. So we've got drums, bass, electric, and acoustic, violin, keys, and then on our second layer, we've got our vocal channels. These are our vocal channels with processing. So this is all with Waves Real Tune. And then we've got our pastor mic, a football mic, which is an auxiliary handheld. And then on the next layer, we've got some of the channels you wouldn't want to be sent to front of house. So we've got click and talkback, MD mic, room mics. And we get down to the last bank for channels 49 through 64, and we've got double patched vocals without Waves Real Tune processing on the channel. So we're not running auto tune on these vocal channels so that we can send these to in-ears, and they're not having all the Waves processing coming into the in-ears, which can really throw off vocalists at points. So we've got our groups, and if you know Our mixing blueprint is channels to groups and then groups to matrices. So we've got our drums crush, guitars, vocals, room mics, miscellaneous or preaching microphones, keys, and band. So these are all groups that are going to the main left-right bus. And we've got our vocal reverb, our drum reverb, our instrument reverb, and our vocal delay. We've got our monitor tab, which is your in-ear monitor aux mixes. Waves LV1 system comes with 16 stereo in-ear mixes. And so we've got all of those labeled. And on this fader layer, we've got our masters. So we've got our main left-right bus, our cue or our headphone mix, talk back, and we've got our matrices. So we've got a matrix for our broadcast, we've got a matrix for our USB recorder, and we've got some open slots we could use in the future. We also have our DCAs here, normal DCAs for controlling volume in the room. And then Waves lets you do a custom layer. So we've got 2 custom layers so far with instruments plus effects, which is basically all of the band and then our effect controls. And then we've got a second user layer with our vocal channels with processing, our DCAs, and then kind of our leadership mics, or our football mic, our pastor mic, and our iMac for media playback. On our second window over here, we basically have this second mixer view, which is just our vocals, our DCAs, and those leadership mics and media playback like I talked about earlier, for easy access for kind of those most needed faders during a worship portion or something like that. Reaching for vocals, pretty easy. DCA is really accessible to control the band at a glance and the rest of the instruments being used. But then over here, we've got the flexibility to hop to and fro wherever we need to. So that's the LV1 show file. If you're interested in designing a Waves setup like this at your church, you can reach out to Churchfront and we can help you design the system from the ground up so that you can see how everything works together, so you can see all the cable connections, what gear and hardware will be needed to make the system come to life. And it doesn't matter if you're designing a small system for a youth or a kids space, or designing a room like this for your main worship space. We can come alongside and help you order the gear, design the system, and then come help install it with boots on the ground. So if you're interested in having our team come alongside you, check out churchfront.com to learn more.